Thank you for choosing to come to the Unleashing the Innovator in You presentation. My name is Sharon Patrick. I'm your YPG chair. I'm the Public Relations and Communications Manager for the Better Business Bureau, Great West and Pacific here in Alaska. Thank you to our lunch sponsors, Providence Health and Services Alaska. Before we get started today, we'd like to welcome Acting Mayor Austin Quinn Davison to say a few words. Mayor, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Sharon, and everyone else. I'm so happy to be here. I know a lot of the focus for this year's event is how to use the last year as a learning experience and something to grow from both personally and professionally. That's something I've thought a lot about as well, both personally and in the context of my current role as mayor. The last year has been incredibly hard on all of us. We've been fighting something invisible and something that has significantly impacted our personal lives, the health of our community, and the health of our economy. Now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm really feeling it myself. Vaccines are here and there's a bright summer ahead of us. And today is a sunny day to remind us of those great summers. And at the Muni, we've set a goal for 70% of eligible Anchorage residents, that's age 16 and up, to get vaccinated. As of today, around 50% of eligible residents have already received their first vaccine dose. So we are well on our way to that goal and to a brighter summer. So if you haven't had the chance yet, I have to remind you to please visit anchoragecovidvaccine.org to find a free vaccine at a location that works for you. At the Muni, we're focused not just on getting back to where we were a year ago, but moving beyond that to an even stronger, more vibrant Anchorage. Thanks to small business grants, thousands of local businesses have been able to keep their doors open. Thanks to rent and mortgage relief, thousands of Anchorage families have stayed housed. We actually saved about 7,400 families through that program who otherwise would have been on the brink of homelessness. And now we're looking ahead to new federal funds coming in, as you probably know, including specific funding to help our local restaurants and bars, childcare centers, music venues, and movie theaters. Step one is helping businesses and families survive the economic impacts of the pandemic. The next step is laying a foundation for an even stronger economy coming out of the pandemic. We're investing in core infrastructure like the Port of Alaska and creating jobs in that process. We're rebuilding our trails to better provide outdoor rec opportunities for residents and tourists alike. And we're investing in climate change solutions that are good for the environment and save our city money at the same time. We're waiving fees and working to streamline the development process to help people build and invest in Anchorage, because we know that's more important now than ever. I believe we can come out of the last year even stronger than we went into it. And at the end of the day, this is because I believe in the people here in Anchorage. I'm particularly hopeful knowing that our city's future is in the hands of all of you, the young people who are innovating and building businesses and raising families, investing your time and energy here in Anchorage. We're lucky to have you leading the way for all of us. It's not easy work and it doesn't all happen at once, but with our collective actions, a brighter summer and a brighter Anchorage are ahead of us. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best for your program today.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Quinn Davison. We really appreciate your time. All right, in this session, we're going to take what we've learned in pivoting, the word that we've all become very accustomed to using over the past year, fast and hard during the past, and really work it into a long-term success, personally and professionally. I'd like to introduce our presenter, Dale Dixon, Chief Innovation Officer with Better Business Bureau, Great West and Pacific. Dale, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you so much, Sharon. And it is great to work with you. And when you called and asked if I'd be willing to have this conversation, this is the second time I've been able to present to this conference, and it's such an honor. And I've been so excited about this. You give me a chance to talk about innovation, and I light up. I don't think I even had to think about it. It was just an immediate yes. So thank you for this honor, Sharon, and the group. I really appreciate it. We're just going to talk about some of the things that we've worked through, that we've learned over the course of the last year and even longer, and then spend some time at the end to answer some questions. I've been watching the questions and they're fantastic, and I'm looking forward to answering those as we go through this. So I'm going to work through this process of sharing my screen, and hopefully I've practiced and it goes smoothly. And I'm going to ask you, Sharon, can you see a big blue screen that says pivot points?
And do see it, sir.
Awesome. All right. So this idea of pivoting really came to light for Better Business Bureau and us here at Better Business Bureau as we went through this process of learning an innovation system. I'm going to share a little bit of that over the course of today, but we spent a lot of time talking about pivoting, and it's this idea of being able to, and I think about it from a basketball standpoint, of planting a foot and turning and moving quickly to adjust to whatever's happening around us. And we'll talk about the fact that we just don't necessarily like change, but I've identified 3 specific areas that I see really helped me in pivoting over the course of the last year, and things that I think I am looking to intentionally integrate into my life to make sure that I'm ready for the next pivot point, because we all know that that's going to happen, especially after the year that we've had. So I broke this down into 3 specific areas as far as pivot points for us. And the first one is preparation, because of the amount of time that we spent preparing. And this really hit home for me when I was sitting in an airport having a conversation with a gentleman by the name of Evans Baya. Evans has done so much work in the innovation space. He's the co-author of the book, The Innovator's Advantage, a dear friend, and he managed about $80 billion of intellectual property for a company called Applied Materials in Silicon Valley before breaking out on his own, becoming an author. Numerous master's degrees, PhD, just one of those smart people that I'm so fortunate to have in my life that I'm constantly bouncing ideas off of. But as we were sitting in the airport, Evans said this to me that you see on your screen. He said, "We, as Better Business Bureau, are one disruptive innovation away from being obsolete." And when he said that to me, it really was a massive wake-up call. Because in my role as chief innovation officer, we'd had some success in the organization, and we had unleashed a product to North America that we called the Scam Tracker, and it's up on your screen. You can take a look at it. It was interesting the way we did this. We worked through the process of ideating, coming up with an idea. It started with a conversation literally at a restaurant table and a napkin. And that sounds so cliche, but it's really how this innovation came to be. As a friend of mine asked the question, okay, so you hear a lot about scams at Better Business Bureau. Have you ever put those scams on a map so that you can start looking at data and seeing where things show up? This is just a screenshot of scams in the Anchorage area, the Alaska area that covered Alaska. You'll see cryptocurrency right there at number 2, April 7th. I thought that was interesting because of what's happening in cryptocurrency. But we built this out. Literally, he and I built the product on a laptop at the lunch table after sketching it on a napkin. I took it back to the office and had our team start using it immediately. We used it, figured out what worked, what didn't work, looked at the data that we generated just out of one office, and then said, wow, this is cool. I started talking to my coworkers at other BBBs and my colleagues at other BBBs, and they said, we'd love to try that as well. So then we tested it at other BBBs. And before I knew it, we had scaled this and taken it basically internationally, that anybody can enter in a small amount of information about a scam. We will pin it on a map, and then you can go in and search about scams anywhere on the map. And it has been a source of information for federal law enforcement. It's opened up partnership opportunities. Scam Tracker was and continues to be on a yearly basis the #1 generator of earned media for the Better Business Bureau system in North America. And it started at a restaurant with a simple what if question, and keep that what if in mind as we talk through today. So this is a fantastic success for us. But as I was sitting there thinking about this idea that Evans posited in my brain, that we're one disruptive idea away from disruption, one disruptive idea away from going away, it really opened my eyes that we needed something a little more sustainable if I was going to prepare, which is what we're talking about now. And this is really where things start on the innovation front. And I would encourage you to think about what you've done as far as generating new ideas in your business. How have you figured out ways to serve the customer? Because when we relentlessly generate new ideas and give them, then we have to give them time to grow into great ones. And that's why I love the quote that's on your screen, is because it's never just that initial idea. Yeah, for us, it started with a question at the restaurant table regarding Scam Tracker, but then it came to taking that idea back to the office and talking to people. We call it socializing the idea. And what does it look like for us as an organization? And continually working to improve and get feedback and grow the idea. It also told me one thing about human nature, and that is, for us, change is hard for people. Human beings don't like change. We've been forced into a lot of change in the last year, whether we like it or not. And it has been interesting to see how people respond to that. And it's really important to watch how people respond to this idea of change around you. And there are going to be some questions that we're going to address that have been asked through the Whova app that have been really great, that we're going to dive deeper into this idea of how to help people change. And it caused me to step back and study what influence looks like and change management inside of an organization. So if you're taking notes, those are things that we're not going to have time to dive deeper into, but those are ideas that if you're really interested in innovation and what it looks like and how you can add value in your job and what you're doing, this idea of change management is something to really grasp a hold of and to better understand. So as we were thinking about this change is hard, for us regarding Scam Tracker, it was specific to this idea that we started small inside, and then we found a few other BBBs to test it with, and then kept changing and iterating and got it to a place where we could share it with a much larger audience. We call that scaling. So if you present an idea, oftentimes when we see people in our organization present ideas, they think, wow, this is a fantastic idea. They're excited about their ideas, and we want that enthusiasm around ideas. But it's important that when somebody presents an idea, when you present an idea, if I present an idea, that I understand that this idea could rock some boats. It could create change, and people are naturally adverse to this. So one of the things we learned through this process is to really watch how people respond to change and how do we help them work through that, realizing that we are all unique individuals and that we're all responding to change differently. We have different stresses and we have different obstacles in our lives that we're working through, challenges in our lives. And so this idea that change is hard is really important to keep in mind as we move forward and look at how do we help people work through that as we bring ideas to bear. And a lot of this deals with resilience. And as I was doing some research around this, I found some interesting data points on why, if you're presenting an idea, and if you see yourself as an innovator, and by the way, we're all innovators, we're all bringing value to our jobs day in and day out. That's all an innovator is finding new value, new ways to bring value. So if you're taking notes, that's really the definition of innovation, is bringing value. We find new value, it's adding value to existing products, services, ways of doing business, internal, external. How do we add value? So as an innovator, resilience is one of those key things that we've really learned over the course of the last year. And as I said, I was doing the research and I found it interesting that when you looked at the development of the aircraft, you think about how the airplane started. It started with a propeller. Well, people who were overseeing the propeller development were the last ones to adopt jet technology. If you think about people who helped develop the telegraph, they were the last ones to develop, to grab a hold of and use the telephone, those things that naturally replaced older technologies. So as we're bringing ideas to the table as innovators, it's important to be resilient in the face of change, understanding that we're all dealing with change differently, and we have to work through it with a resilient nature. So if people don't adopt our ideas to begin with, we can be resilient. Ask questions. Why? Accept feedback. Take that feedback. Make our ideas better. You'll see that this is a progression, that we're building on this idea of what innovation looks like for us as organizations, as individuals inside of organizations, where you're working day in and day out. So I'm going to share, and this is really hard because I've never done this publicly. And I'm going to share a failure in the innovation space for us as Better Business Bureau, because in looking back, we broke some of the rules around innovation. Some of the rules that I'm going to share with you in a moment. But the failure is what we call the BBB app. So the BBB app started back in 2016 with an idea. And I've got this word cultural context because this is one of the areas where we didn't think it through completely. But we had this idea that wouldn't it be great if you could open an app on your phone and you could find businesses on a map and see what their rating was, see how people have interacted with that business, read reviews, really get an idea of where those trustworthy businesses are. With Better Business Bureau, we have what are called BBB accredited businesses. These are businesses that have taken a pledge to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. They take a pledge to be honest, to tell the truth in advertising, to be responsive, to safeguard the privacy of their customers, to honor their promises, to act with integrity. And when a business takes that pledge, literally signs a document with Better Business Bureau, which is a private nonprofit in your community, then we give the business the ability to say BBB accredited, meaning it gives you, the customer, a level of confidence that that business is going to stand behind its products and services because it's taken a pledge to these standards for trust that I just listed. And the Better Business Bureau is there as an accountability partner with that business. So we thought, wow, if people knew where those businesses were right there on their phone, it would make it really easy. And I went and I had a conversation with a marketing class at a university and got some ideas on how to make this idea better and how to make it more useful for people. And so we worked through a number of the processes. The Better Business Bureau system is a bit unique in that we are BBB Great Western Pacific, where Sharon works. We are one of 98 individual Better Business Bureaus throughout North America, the United States and Canada. And when an idea like this comes, it really takes all 98 of those individual Better Business Bureaus to get on board. I guess we took a page out of Field of Dreams. And we said, if we build it, they will come. Thinking about if we build the app, then the other BBBs will jump on board and help support it and promote it and generate a lot of use. And as we built it out, we built out the entire app. We even built out a full marketing package, had television commercials made.
Eddie, you've been doing some really great work.
Thank you, boss. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about this promotion. Do you smell that?
I don't think so.
No, it's a very pungent, distinct odor.
No, I don't smell anything, sir.
Well, it's cat urine and pine needles. You must smell that.
Oh, that. That actually might be my suit.
Your suit.
I tried a new dry cleaner.
Where'd you find this dry cleaner?
It's just on the map app thingy on my phone.
You know what you should have done?
Excuse me?
You should have used the Better Business Bureau app. The Better Business Bureau app not only helps you find local businesses and see BBB ratings, it tells you which ones are BBB accredited. And there's no one you can trust more than the BBB. The app also alerts you to any scams happening in your area or nationwide.
Any big plans for after work?
Well, me and some friends are gonna try to find someone that can take you out on one of those shark cages.
You should probably go ahead and download that BBB app first.
Yeah.
The Better Business Bureau app. Don't just find a business, find a better business.
So yes, very much a little bit awkward. The idea, though, that we didn't pay close attention to the cultural context of this inside the Better Business Bureau world, and we didn't take the necessary steps. We're going to own this one of getting this socialized within the Better Business Bureau world. So we actually got a lot of use in the Washington area, the Alaska area where we were at, but we could never get nationwide use and into Canada because we couldn't win over our colleagues at the other 98 BBBs. And just a couple weeks ago, we decided to pull the plug. We had run through our resilience gas tank on this one, and we looked at the data, we looked at what was happening in the marketplace, and we said, okay, we're going to learn a lot from this example. And I'm going to share with you now what we learned and the massive changes that we've made internally as an organization because of this failure that I just shared with you. What we learned was to create a system of innovation inside of Better Business Bureau. And that system we learned from Evan's bias. So in the last 2 years, we started to see the handwriting on the wall with the app. About 2 years ago, we kept pushing. When everything came down the pike, you've heard about the Facebook Apple battle over privacy. As Apple's releasing its newest iOS updates, we were faced with a major overhaul of the app and that expense. And when we looked at the expense, the use, adoption rate throughout the rest of the country, we said, okay, it's best that we're going to shut that down. So you don't even need to go to the App Store and look for it. Not there anymore because of what we learned. We started to see this about 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, we said, okay, we're going to do innovation in a completely different way. We're going to create a set of guardrails to help guide us down the path of being innovators, because we want a culture of innovation in this organization. And while we're completely open to continue making mistakes and learning from those mistakes, we want to do this the right way and minimize our liability. So the lesson that I'm sharing with you and hoping that you pull is, I'm not going to be able to teach you the framework for innovation, but I want you to open your mind to the idea that there are systems in place. There are frameworks in place for innovation. And innovation is just not throwing ideas like spaghetti noodles on a wall to see what sticks, because that's the old way that we were doing it. We had a great success in Scam Tracker, but we had this massive failure with the BBB app. And so when I look at that, I say, okay, what can we learn? We learned we need to create a very solid system for our organization if we're really going to act as innovators and take big ideas to market. So we brought Evans into the organization, and he spent the last 2 years really creating and driving a culture of innovation, helping everybody in the team, all 160 employees, grasp a hold of what innovation looks like and how to do it. And it starts with this learning of the 6 stages of innovation. And you can start to do these things and see these things in your life. And it's because of this system that we were able to so well pivot, work through 2020 and early 2021. We look back to what we learned in this process and said, this has been key to our success. We've continued to grow. We brought in another part of the country into this Better Business Bureau. So now we serve all of Alaska, Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Western Wyoming, and Central Colorado. And that happened during, we brought in Central Colorado during the pandemic. During 2020, we were able to keep growing, and we credit a system of innovation as one of the things that helped us pivot and take advantage of opportunities when those opportunities presented themselves, even when we had the chaos of what was happening around us in the world. So one of those things to learn in preparation, learn the systems when you can, implement the systems when you can, and they will serve you well later on. That's a big point for us. So I'm just going to break this down really quick. When it comes to identify, that's recognizing the problem or the opportunity and generating a lot of ideas, always looking for ideas. How many ideas can I create? Can I generate? How many people can I come in contact with to help me generate ideas? This is all part of the identify stage. There's a problem. There's a solution out there. Every problem is an opportunity. How can I find the solutions and generate the ideas around that? So this is the identify stage. This is my favorite stage. We are all, each and every one of us on this call, the hundreds of people who are watching this, we're all really, really good at least one area. Each of you is really good at least one area. And hopefully, as we talk through this briefly, you're going to see where you're really good. This is where you, as an innovator, can build your skill out. So you say, oh, and Dale explained develop. That's what I love to do. Okay, so that's where you're going to dive in and learn everything you can about how to develop an idea into a marketable solution. So identify, that's where we recognize our problems, our opportunities, and we create ideas to address that problem or that opportunity. That's what this is. So if you love to come up with ideas, this is your space. This would be the thinker. We've got a question about thinkers and doers. This is one of those thinker states. I love to get in a room and just create ideas. The define aspect, this is really how we're going to address the problem or the opportunity that is in front of us. So we take and we organize the ideas that were created in the identify stage, and we start to create a plan. This is all on the paper, on the whiteboard, on the back of the napkin. This is where this is still happening, where our thinkers are really involved. Then in the develop stage, we start to materialize the idea. So we take the idea off paper and we start to build the products, or we start to create the systems to help solve the problem or address the challenge or address the opportunity that we have at our disposal. And we test in this develop phase. So this is where we start to see the doers come into play in this innovation journey that we have. This is where we experiment, we test. This is another area that I love. I love trying new things and seeing how they're going to work. Then we verify, and this is where we take the ideas, we take what we've started to build in the develop stage, and we start to verify, is that we prove, does it actually solve the problem? Does it follow through on our theory? And does it address the opportunity? Will people use it? This is one of the areas that we didn't follow this format when it came to the BBB app. This is one of the mistakes we made when we didn't go through the verify process. Then we deploy it. We make it available for adoption to an audience. We collect the data, we receive feedback, and we make changes. And then on scale, we do exactly that. We make it available to a larger group of users. This can happen internally, this can happen externally. And when we start to follow this process, we start to see some real success. And we have already internally, and we've seen it play out in a number of places. What Evans continues to remind us is that this is not linear. Even though I present it to you as step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you will get halfway. You might get to verify and find that you need to go back to identify and see that you missed something, or skip back to develop. And you'll see this more cyclical or cyclical nature of these stages play out. And it might take you a while to get to scale through this process. But when we have used this, it's been really helpful. And it's one of the biggest lessons that we learned. When we think about preparation and how it sets us up for long-term success, we walked into 2020 prepared with an innovation system. And it helped us pivot at a number of places because we were able to quickly run through this. We had start to create muscle memory with this innovation process. And it was really exciting for us to look back. We'd get through a really big challenge and we could say, okay, we're going to stick to it because I'm the guy that just wants to go identify and scale. That's me. If I could just take those bookends, but now I've got a team of people around me that have gone through this process and learned this. And they say, no, Dale, we can identify. Then we need to define, then we're going to develop, then we're going to verify, then we'll deploy, and then we'll scale. And we use this process. And I step back and say, okay, You're exactly right. That's what we need to do. And it sets us up for success. So when you think about what we learned, preparation is key. Find a system that works for you. Every framework is flawed. Some are useful. So for us, yeah, there are going to be flaws in this. I would encourage you to go out, find a system that works for you, that you can follow, that you can implement in your organization, learn it, adopt it. So, because preparation is the key moving forward when we think about pivot points. So our next piece is curiosity. This is one of the things that I've really learned over the course of the last year, that the more curious I am, the more ideas I will come up with. And once again, we're going to dip back into this preparation stage. The easier it is for me to innovate. And I want to be curious about the people around me. I want to meet new people. I want to understand how things work. And I'm always thinking, okay, I have opportunities to get better in this area. Where can I become more curious? Where can I grow in this area? Because I know it makes me a better innovator. It makes me better able to work in each of those stages of innovation. The best visual I can think of for this idea of curiosity is my teenage daughter's dog. His name is Diesel. And all I have to do is say the word ride, I'm going, or I'm going, or ride, and his ears perk up and he gets so excited and he races to the door. So if he can't go in the car, it makes it trouble keeping him in the house. When he does get in the car, this is his favorite thing to do, is hang his head out the window and just through sheer curiosity, absorb every sight, sound, and smell that's happening around him. It is the epitome, I see, of curiosity. And I think if I could have that childlike curiosity about what's happening in the world around me, it really helps me on the innovation front. And it's one of those things that has worked to really help me over the course of the last year, staying curious. It just occurred to me, but when I stay curious, it keeps my mind and my focus off of me, and it puts it onto the people around me, which is a much healthier place to be. Because when we're isolated inside of our homes, working from home, it's really easy just to get focused on me. Here's what I'm going through right now. Here are the challenges that I'm going through. When we adopt a mindset of curiosity, it keeps us focused on those around us, which is a much more mentally healthy place to be. So one of those lessons that I learned that worked really well for me. And then another book, if you're looking for books to read, and that was one of the questions that were asked in the Whova app, but another book about innovation. And the author, Max McEwen, says that the true parents of innovation are necessity and curiosity. So take a moment and think about the amount of necessity that we worked through in 2020. And when you match that with curiosity, it really drives our opportunity to be innovators inside of our organization. And a lot of it just starts with this idea of asking the what if question. And I've really worked on this for me, and hopefully I share when I share what I've learned over the last year. At least a few of these things are things that I'm hoping that you can incorporate in your life, and you can have an aha moment and say, oh, wow, that might work for me too. What if it would work for me? I also love the statement that I heard somebody say, it's the quality of the question determines the quality of the answer. And so I will also, in asking the what ifs, I want to make sure that I'm asking really good questions as I go through this. I want to know how things work. What if? I want to know if we can try new things and what happens then. What can I learn today? That's one of the questions that I like to ask myself every morning. What can I learn today? Something new that makes me a better person, helps me connect more with and be of better service, add more value to the people with whom I work. Those are some of the questions that I'm asking myself on a daily basis from a curiosity standpoint. And then I'm also looking for ways to break my habits. When I think about this idea that change is hard and I don't want to be the one that gets in the way of change, I know that I've got to break habits and break myself out of ruts. And just before the presentation started, I was thinking, so what are some of the ways that I do this and make a habit of it? And I immediately thought to the shower this morning, and that when I take the bar of soap, I notice myself starting right here on this arm with a bar of soap and then methodically working my way as I take the shower. And I thought, okay, so I need to start somewhere else to break the habit. If I start brushing my teeth, I always like put the toothbrush on the lower left side. Okay, I'm going to put the toothbrush in my left hand and try brushing my teeth a different way. This might sound so ridiculous to you right now, but when we start to break habits, it opens up new neural pathways in our brains and helps us be more receptive to new ideas and be more receptive to change and work through it so that we can pivot faster. So it's starting with the little things so that the bigger things become easier down the road and creating those habits. And so I'll operate at those just little things, trying to make it easier for me when the big things do come so that I am prepared. And there's our prepare word one more time. And it deals with, I'm looking for opportunities to stretch myself. And how can I do that? And what does that look like? So I'd encourage you to think about ways to stretch yourself, break habits, pay close attention to where are your habits and what happens. How uncomfortable is it when you go to break a habit? And how hard is it to start washing on the other arm or putting your toothbrush in your left hand if you're a righty? How difficult is that? And what does it feel like? And okay, where does that translate? And how does that translate into other parts of my life? As I've worked through that, it's really opened my eyes. The third area is luck. So this really just is the bookend to our conversation, because I love what Seneca said: luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So it's taking the preparation of all that we've learned through 2020 and saying, okay, I know that there are going to be more opportunities. I'm going to choose to use the word opportunity because you can call them challenges, you can call them hardships, but really it's with a favorite quote, and I'm blanking on the name and it just came to mind, but within every challenge lies a seed of equal or greater opportunity. And Think and Grow Rich is the book. And somebody out there knows the name of the author, and I'm just completely blanking on it. Sorry about that. But when I think about this idea that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, my sincere desire for you is that you take a mental note of all that you learn, and because it's so much more than what I've shared in the last 41 minutes, but take a mental note of what you've learned in the course of the last year and a half almost, and say, okay, what can I do to translate that into a seed of opportunity that's going to create benefit for me personally, to help me add more value to my company, to my community, moving forward. And it's a fantastic opportunity for all of us. It's a growth opportunity for all of us. And it's something that I am learning on a constant basis. So to wrap things up, I sat down as I was concluding this, and I thought, okay, so what are some of the things that I've learned? And hopefully, as I list these out, they will be a spark for conversation in your offices. It'll be a spark to help you think about what you've learned over the course of the last now 13 months. And so 13 months up on the screen. I'm a communication guy, not necessarily a math guy. So don't listen to me when it comes to numbers. But I thought, you know what? It's about preparation. It's how we started this conversation. Preparation is really key. And it's not about buying more toilet paper. If you remember, that's what it was all about back in March of 2020. But that's not what I'm talking about on preparation. I'm talking about consuming books. That's a question. And I've got myself surrounded with books. And what can I learn? And how can I prepare myself to be ready for what I don't know is coming? But that's a constant growth opportunity and an opportunity I see for preparation. What can I learn? What can I share? How can I be of more value to the people around me, where I work, my family, my friends? It's to realize that we're more flexible than oftentimes we give credit. And when I look back at the last year and I think of the changes that I made, literally going to work from home in over a weekend. And what does that look like? And how did I do that? And I thought, wow, there were places where I thought I was inflexible, that I was more flexible than I really thought. And so what are those areas where you found you being flexible that kind of surprised yourself? Take a mental note of that, because I'm convinced that we can all learn something new. And there's no better time than today to learn something new. And I want to push myself to do that. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and to try something different and a different way of doing things. Find a different way to drive to work tomorrow. Give yourself an extra 5 minutes just to see something new. If you go for a run tonight, try a different route just to see something different. Or if you run the same route, run it backwards. But all these areas that we get stuck in ruts. Walk the same route, run the same route, go to the same set of equipment at the gym, whatever it is. How can I try something different, change things up for myself? And because we can find new ways to add value. And there's always that opportunity. I think about the number of businesses that are represented by you in this conference right now, and how you adapted and changed and pivoted quickly to meet the needs of your customers. In the course of the last 13 months and what that looked like. It is so impressive. And there's so much that we can all learn from one another through that to better serve our customers and to better add value to our customers. That's truly what innovation is all about when we talk about pivoting. And it's seeing ourselves as problem solvers. Within every opportunity lies a seed of, within every challenge lies a seed of opportunity that's even greater. And problem solvers win the day. Those are the people we want to be around. Those are the companies that we want to hire, are the problem solvers that can make our lives easier. This is almost cliche. We're not alone. We've all gone through so much, and each person has had their own battle, but we are not alone in this. And I love to see the amount of networking that's taking place on the Whova app, and how you're working together, the conversation that was sparked during the last presentation, and just seeing that we're all working through this, learning something new. Each person as a unique individual learning something new through this process, and it's a great opportunity for all of us. It's also an opportunity for us to find common ground with one another. I know that there's a lot of divisiveness last year, but there's so much where we can find common ground. And if we start there, we can be innovators together and really solve problems, bring new value to the table. And every person is a creative problem solver. When you think about the 6 stages, when we go back to that, and I said each person is really good at least one of those stages, that's what I'm talking about. That you might not be the idea person, but maybe you're the doer that loves to take an idea and make it work. And that's where your creativity really shines as a problem solver. And that's where we love to see people shine in their strength. It's not about improving the weakness. It's about shining and growing a strength. And that's the opportunity that we have to learn to pivot. And with that, I am going to find the stop share. I'm going to have Sharon come back into the conversation, and I have I think I've got the questions on my app. Or Sharon, you're leading the way, so you tell me how you want to do this.
Yeah, well, I can read them, and that way that gives you the opportunity to just answer and be your amazing innovator self. How's that? What's one book I can read now to help me level up?
So this is going to sound like a political answer, and it's not a political answer because we're all unique individuals. So it depends on really what you want to do. I've got a couple books right here in front of me. So I'm going to say, if you really want to start down the road of creating a system for yourself, I would say The Innovator's Advantage is a great place to start in creating a system and understanding it. If you say, you know what, I really just love the idea of ideating and thinking about the future and what's coming down the pike. This book, it's called The Future is Faster Than You Think by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. So Peter Diamandis is the founder of the X Prize, which was the $10 million to the first company that could put a commercial spacecraft into space and reuse it. I had the amazing privilege of being one of about 30 people at a private book launch for this down in Silicon Valley last year. And here's the deal. I'm going to look to you, Sharon. We're going to talk afterwards. I have 5 copies of this book that I want to give to, I'll let you figure out how you're going to identify the 5 people who get this book. But I've got 5 copies that I want to give of The Future is Faster Than You Think to, maybe, Sharon, I'll let you get really creative,
Okay.
and figure out the best way to give these away. But I've got 5 copies. So there are 2 books, depending on which way you want to go, that I would recommend off the top of my head.
Perfect. And Tabitha, who works at the chamber, she said Napoleon Hill, I believe, is the author that were you looking for?
You are right. Yes, Napoleon Hill is the author, and I butchered the quote, but it's within every challenge or hardship is an equal or greater opportunity, is the seed of an equal or greater opportunity.
There you go. All right. How do you deal with a staffer who may be growing, maybe a growing distraction that appears to be working against the culture of innovation being shaped? That's a deep one.
So I look at this, we're big on culture at Better Business Bureau. And I always bring these conversations back to the values that drive the organization. So within BBB, we have a set of values that drive every decision we make. Our values are excellence, teamwork, respect, integrity, and trust. And so we're going to use those, and we're very clear with everybody who comes on into the organization, who works in the organization, that this is the behavior that we align to and live up to these values. And if people don't, they don't stay with the organization. So, I mean, that sounds like a very blunt way to do it, but when you have a high performing organization that has a fantastic culture and a set of guiding values that are used to drive decision making, to help people be the very best they can be at work, you'll see that it helps propel that business further faster. I got, and it really was clarified, and I'm looking around my desk for the book, but it's a book called No Rules Rules, and it's the story of Netflix, and they are relentless at making sure that people live to the values of the organization, and they don't mince words about when it's time. Now, that's if you're in a leadership position. If you're in a mid-level position, I love the idea of leading from the middle. So it's having a conversation with that person and grabbing a hold of that Napoleon Hill quote and say, okay, here's a challenge. Are you open to some feedback? Here's what I'm seeing. Here's the impact of what you just said on us as an organization. So it's providing some real-time feedback, but being really clear on your values as an organization will help drive those types of conversations.
Great. What is the best way for a thinker to find a doer, or vice versa?
I read this question before the session started, and the first thing that came to mind is situational awareness. So it's just being aware of the people around me and thinking about, okay, where are the doers, where are the thinkers? And then I can grab a hold of those 6 stages of innovation, and I can start to think, okay, where are people really great? So if I'm using the 6 stages of innovation as the example, as the filter, so to speak, and say, oh, wow, I know that, Sharon, our organization, loves to sit down with me and generate new ideas. So he's more of the thinker. Or I know Sharon in our organization really loves to take an idea and build it out and get it to a place that works. That's a doer. So I've started to identify where strengths are. And as I look and identify strengths in the people around me, because I'm situationally aware, I'm focused on others, then I'm going to start to say, okay, I'm going to rely on that strength to help push the organization further, faster, and set that person up for success. So it's just watching where people get energy and helping to feed that fuel tank. I call it feeding the emotional fuel tank. So what gives you energy? What gives you great satisfaction? What gets you excited to come into work in the morning? Is it the doing? Is it the thinking? And then how to put people in the right positions.
Great. How do you engage an innovator and keep them motivated?
I'll come back. I'm looking at all of this through the lens of what we've been studying, as I shared in this presentation, but I look back to the 6 stages of innovation, and I'm looking at, okay, where is the strength? When you get to exercise your strength, we bring out the passion for what you do in your job. And so I'm going to want to engage people in their strength and find that passion. When I see their eyes light up, when I see them get excited about a project, that's going to get them engaged. And it's working to really know people. And I'll bring it back to the situational awareness, watching how other people respond, I'm asking, how can I better serve these folks? How can I be of more service to these folks? Once again, taking the focus off of me, putting it on other people so that I'm situationally aware.
Okay. Natural innovators tend to run into resistance from their leadership. What can they do to help gain support from their leadership in order to run outside the lines and innovate new ideas, particularly if their first attempt failed miserably?
So thinking about the term that comes to mind immediately is socializing ideas. And, I shared what our failure was with the app. And it's because we didn't socialize the idea well enough with those other leaders in the organization, the greater whole of the Better Business Bureau system. And so I would say start there. And as leaders, being in an executive role, we want to see data. We want to see that you've thought through this and adopt your chosen system for innovation. And could you read, there were a couple statements in that question that I thought were really interesting.
Sure. Natural innovators tend to run into resistance from their leadership. What can they do to help gain support from their leadership in order to run outside the lines?
It was the run outside the lines. And that's a natural thing. And mavericks, people who like to break the rules. And I'm one of those. I completely relate to that. Like to run outside the lines. And that's one of the things I would say I've learned, and that I've had a lot of introspection through, is that I had to see that was an opportunity for me to grow in an area I needed to grow. And that is to see that the guardrails of an innovation system give me tremendous freedom. It is the great paradox that rules and guardrails give us, the lines actually give us freedom to operate. And so I want to look at that and say, listen, I'm operating inside of this system. For me personally, it's the innovator's advantage, the 6 stages of innovation. When I present an idea and I'm able to methodically show data that we have thought about an idea and taken it from the identify to define to develop to verify, deploy, and we're ready to scale, or that we have a roadmap on how to work an idea through that process, all of a sudden leadership is going to say, wow, you've got a set of guardrails. You've got some lines in which to operate. You've really thought this through well. let's work through this, or they'll have some input that you can incorporate. But it's socializing the idea. And then there's a term also from No Rules Rules that Netflix really works to embrace, and that's called farming for dissent. So as you, the idea generator who asked the question, it's going out throughout your organization and literally looking for people to shoot down your idea. And that's, oh man, that gives me stress just saying it. But it's amazing how it will help get an idea better, because the first idea is never the best idea that gets to that scale stage. In his work, Evans has found that it takes a total of 3,000 ideas to, he draws it as a funnel. So if you think about those 6 stages, the top of the funnel is all of the ideas, 3,000 ideas. The one that makes it to the bottom of the funnel and out the spout that is scale 1. So 3,000 ideas at the top of the funnel, 1 idea at the bottom of the funnel. So, and it's that, you know, those ideas that get percolated, they get refined, they get improved. So Farming for Dissent, the No Rules Rules book, will help us take an idea and make it better to a place where leadership can say, you've operated inside the boundaries of a system and you've given a lot of thought to this. You've really involved the entire organization. It's time that we pay attention to this idea and take it for the merit that you bring. Easy said, difficult to do. I know I just completely distilled that down and filtered that down into a 90-second answer to a very complex question. And it takes a lot of hard work. So I don't want to be dismissive. Please don't hear that as being dismissive. I completely get it. It takes an immense amount of difficult, hard work. Especially if you have change adverse people. But that's where the resilience piece comes in from the presentation.
And last question, what sparks work, inspiration, innovation for you? Music, YouTube?
I have 3, well, I'm going to break this up into 2 categories. The first category is I am constantly looking for ways to interact and engage with our customers. So Sharon leads one of these efforts for us at Better Business Bureau. We call them advisory boards, and we meet with groups of business owners. So that's one piece of the customer. I had some folks, I will accept a meeting with an entrepreneur or a business owner at the drop of a hat. All I have to do is ask, and I will be there. So this week, I went to lunch with an entrepreneur who is starting up an overland rental company. So he went out and he bought 3 Toyota 4Runners, equipped them with rooftop tents, all the gear inside, full kitchen, so that you can rent this vehicle, take it up to the mountains, and camp right out of the vehicle. And he's building a rental business. So I love those opportunities to sit down with an entrepreneur and just talk and listen and get ideas to better understand my customer. So that would be vertical number 1 of where I go for inspiration, is to listen to my customer and have those face-to-face conversations. The second is what I will call my personal tribe of mentors. I have 3 distinct groups of friends that I intentionally spend time with. Every Thursday morning, I have coffee with a CEO and a technologist. I have a group of people that I ride motorcycles with, and I'm listening to them. They're really great in their fields, and I'm always seeing, what can I learn? I want to stay situationally aware. What can I learn? How do they adapt? What are they looking for? And they've been inspiration. That's where the inspiration for Scam Tracker came, right there. So that's another set of inspiration. It's really, for me, it's the one-on-one connections that create the inspiration for innovation.
Great. And actually, we did get a fun question that I'm going to ask that we'll end on. Do you have any fun motorcycle trips planned this summer?
Let's see.
That's from Dan.
I'm waiting for an invitation to come up and ride with Dan Newman in Alaska, but
Well, that's his question.
I'm joking. So I'm going to ride. Right now the plan is to ride my motorcycle from Idaho to Colorado in September. That's about the biggest ride, but a number of weekend rides scheduled.
Awesome. Well, Dale, thank you so very much. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm very glad to have you. Virtual snaps or applauses from everybody. Just thanks again. That was really, truly great.
Thanks for the opportunity.
With that, you guys, so the books that Dale just offered up, what we're going to do is give those away based on your WOVA app engagement, because you do accrue points for being engaged in the app. So we will randomly give those away, probably with our other prizes at the end of the weekend. Wanted to also, we have a special breakout workshops beginning at 1:15, including getting involved in your community, recruiting talent and investing in employees, and building customer relationships using content marketing. Please remember, we do have in-person option for the keynote presentation and award ceremony tomorrow evening. We do need you to RSVP in advance because the space is limited. Go to the agenda and the WOVA app and search for the keynote reception where you can find the link and RSVP. And don't forget to visit the virtual exhibitor booths to get your passport stamped and check out the meal deals we have for chamber members and sponsors. That is it for today's keynote presentation. Dale, thanks again for being here. You have a few minute break to refill your coffee, refill your water, and we'll see you back at 1:15. Thanks, Dale.